Alright, what's up guys? So before I start this video, I just want to say don't mind the parkour in the background. I know I suck, but that's not what we're here for. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video and let's get into it. Alright guys, so I just got done watching the premiere of the live-action adaptation of The Last of Us, and I wanted to put my thoughts out on what I thought about it. So, if you guys haven't played the game, which I don't know who hasn't, it's been out for a while, then there will be some spoilers here and there, as well as a few things that will happen in this first episode, so keep that in mind going forward. So, in the show, it has a few things that are different from the game. Like in the game, when we start off in the living room with Sarah sleeping on the couch and Joel talking on the phone, and in this scene, Sarah gives Joel his birthday present, which is a watch that he had that Sarah got the money to fix. Now, in the show, we start off in the year 1968, where we see some type of talk show host talking about a virus in the form of a fungus. And the older man that is being interviewed explains that there are some fungi who seek not to kill but to control, saying that the fungus can alter our minds, and there is a fungus that can latch onto ants, for example, and eat away at them, giving them no control over their actions, yet still being able to keep them alive to use as a host. He then goes on to say that it pretty much that the human body is warm enough to fight off the fungus, but if our genes were to mutate, then it could become a problem being able to take control of people as well. So that is the first scene that starts us off, and then in the next scene we get a bit of detail into what happens before Sarah gives Joel his watch in the living room. So we see Sarah preparing for school. She wakes up Joel and starts making him a birthday breakfast. And then before she gets ready for school to leave, she goes upstairs, gets Joel's watch and some money from his drawer. Before getting into Tommy's truck outside to go off to school, there's a pretty funny conversation that breaks out between Sarah, Joel, and the old people who live next door, known as the Adlers. It's pretty funny. I'm not going to type out exactly like what is said, but Joel ends up saying, "Sure, Sarah can come by after school. She can stay as long as you want her to," and it's pretty funny. So after this scene, Sarah is in class, and she's in school. The bell rings, and then she leaves the school, get on a bus, where she goes into the city, and you see her go into a jewelry store and get the watch repaired. While she's in there, we see some police cars and ambulances speed past after a while, and what appears to be, I guess, the shopkeeper's wife comes in the room from behind, and she's in a panic and explains that the store is going to be closing early and that Sarah would be wise to go home. Sarah is then handed the fixed watch and is pushed out the door as it is locked behind her, and they close the shop. So, as explained earlier, we see Sarah head over to Mr. and Miss Adler's house, and Miss Adler offers to make some cookies. Sarah is bummed out that they are not chocolate chip cookies. You can tell by her face. She's like, "Ugh, disgusting. That's crap." So Sarah goes into the living room where there's an old woman who we saw from the previous morning, where she's being fed biscuits out on the front lawn, which is where part of the funny conversation took place. And the old woman is staring off into what I can only imagine is the void. And Sarah goes to the shelf where there's some books and movies, and she's browsing through them. It's a bit blurry in the background, but we can see the old woman is starting to convulsing, but Sarah doesn't notice. And she goes back into the kitchen with the movie that she wants to borrow and asks if she can borrow it. Miss Adler, of course, says she can, and then Sarah proceeds to say that she's going to go and head out. On the way out, the Adler's dog, Mercy, starts to whine as she stares at the old woman who, of course, has continued to stare at the void, which it looks like nothing is wrong at this point. So, the next scene is actually where we start getting the live-action adaptation of the first cutscene from the game. So, by this point, we're about maybe like 20 minutes into the episode, and there's a few lines that are actually changed around, but I actually thought that it was pretty cool that they added some depth to the interaction instead of the short, simple approach that the game took. So, there's a famous line in the game where Joel asks, "Where'd you get the money for this?" And Sarah replies with, "Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs." And Joel then says, "Oh, good. You can help out with the mortgage." And Sarah just kind of laughs and says, "Yeah, you wish." So, after that, Joel turns on the TV, and it cuts to a bit later in the night where Sarah is sleeping on the couch, and he picks her up and takes her upstairs to her bed, and the scene ends there. Now, in the show, after that line, "The drugs, I sell hardcore drugs," Joel says, "It's better than what I do," and then Sarah replies with, "It was only $20, which I stole from you. Could have stole 60, but I put the change back because I'm an honest thief," which I laughed at that part. It was pretty funny. She then says, "Besides, it's the thought that counts, and you were never going to do it for yourself anyways." Joel says thank you, and Sarah says that she has one more present, and pulls out the movie that she had borrowed from the Adlers. The movie is Curtis and Viper 2. Now, for anyone who hasn't played The Last of Us, this is actually an Easter egg that you can find a poster for Curtis and Viper 4 in The Last of Us 2. Where Ellie actually explains the plot to Dina. So if you haven't played it, I won't spoil anything about the game itself, but I will go and explain Ellie's conversation about the plot. So Ellie says, "Okay, so 2 former commandos that go rogue to fight bad guys. I think in this one they go up against Russian spies or something. Alright, so the young one, Viper, he's a trained ninja, and he's a complete badass." Then, Dina asks how old he is in the first movie, and Ellie replies, 10? She then reveals that there's a total of 4 movies in the series, and Joel saw the final film in the cinema. So, with that little Easter egg explained, let's get back on track with what's going on in the actual scene. So, Sarah then asks, "Okay, well, pop it in while it's still your birthday, you know?" So, Joel then, when he gets up, he goes, puts the movie in, sits back down, and tells her, "Don't fall asleep." Sarah responds with, "Of course not. It's too riveting," which I think is pretty funny. She then, of course, goes and proceeds to fall asleep. So, later in the night, it cuts, it's a bit later in the night, Joel gets a phone call from Tommy, who's in jail. So, when Joel answers the phone, Tommy says that he was at a bar where a guy was swinging on a waitress, and he stepped in, knocked the guy out, it looked bad, and then he ended up in jail. And he's asking Joel to bail him out. Joel mentions that he's a fucking idiot, and then he hangs up and takes Sarah up to her bed. Now, everything in this next scene is the same, except when Sarah leaves her room, instead of going downstairs and having a frantic Joel burst through the sliding glass door with him yelling to not go by the windows and everything like that, we see Mercy, the neighbor's dog, pawing at the window trying to be let in or just ask for some form of help or safety. When Sarah tries to take Mercy back to the house, however, the collar breaks loose and Mercy runs off. From inside of the Adler's house, you can hear a crash, and Sarah decides she's going to go see what happened. She then sees an injured and bloodied Mr. Adler leaning against the fridge, saying, "Help me," in like a whisper, trying not to be too loud. Sarah slowly approaching him, then sees Grandma Adler with some creepy ass antenna things sticking out of her face, as she's eating Mr. Adler, as she's eating Miss Adler, in the kitchen. When Grandma Adler notices Sarah, she charges at Sarah, and of course Sarah turns around and just bursts out of the house, where she is then met with Joel, who has just arrived back from bailing Tommy out of jail. Joel yells for Sarah to get in the truck now, and then pushes her kind of towards the truck. When Grandma Adler bursts out of the house, however, and rushes Joel, he clocks her in the head with a wrench, and from here on, everything is pretty much in line from the game, as far as this first episode. So, with all of that being said, I want to move on to talk about some of the cast. It's pretty much as far as like story stuff that we can go through, stuff that has changed. Everything else is pretty much one-on-one with the actual game itself. So first off, I think that the team that worked on this TV adaptation did an amazing job with the casting and characters, especially with Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. Like, I look forward to them. I look forward to seeing some of the fun banter that actually takes place throughout the game, or maybe even like some new banter to fill the gaps in time that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise while playing through the game. Another thing is, if you want some extra info on the upcoming Last of Us episodes, right now you can watch the show on HBO Max or through Amazon Prime Video. And stay till after the credits to see some of the behind the scenes and some interviews with some of the cast, as well as a few sneak peeks from clips of part of the episodes that are coming in the later weeks. So currently, the episodes are being released every Sunday in the US, and the episodes will be available for anyone in the UK by the next day after release, if I'm not mistaken. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys thought about the show in the comments below. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you plan to watch it, or if you haven't even started it, I don't know. Anything else in between as well. Be sure to hit the notification bell so you make sure that you are here next week for the episode 2 recap. And thank you all for watching, and as always, keep it crispy, guys.